Late last year, this video aired on Chinese state TV. It's showing off a state-of-the-art building. This tiny speck, surrounded by frozen tundra, perched on the rocky coast of Inexpressible Island in the icy Ross Sea, complete with sea views. 44 rooms with ergonomic bunk beds and Scandi-style timber furniture, couches for downtime, advanced security for your spacious room, overlooking the magnificent Ross Sea. While this might seem like an alpine resort, it's actually an outpost of the Chinese government.
中国南极站的建设完全符合南极国际规则和程序，将有利于增进人类对南极的科学认知。
This is Qinling Station, China's 5th Antarctic base and the 3rd that can operate year-round.
There is an increasing number of research stations in Antarctica. On one hand, that's a very positive development because it shows an increasing interest in Antarctic science and an increasing number of states that wish to be involved in Antarctic matters.
These kind of bases don't come cheap. It's part of China's growing effort to become the premier polar power, boasting permanent sea, air and land capabilities in Australia's backdoor frontier and next to a permanent US station. Not to mention access to, potentially, hundreds of billions of tonnes in natural gas and oil. With China's increasing play in the icy continent, it's worth asking, who owns Antarctica? Shortly after this photo was taken, all the people in it would die. This is British explorer Robert Scott's return leg from trying to be the first people to reach the South Pole. They'd been racing against a Norwegian expedition. It revealed the deadly side to this peaceful continent. Imperial competition, you know, planting flags in the ground kind of stuff. All in the name of science. I wanted to understand US thinking on Antarctica. So, under Freedom of Information, I applied for these secret US documents. In it, we see the US preparing Antarctica as a future battleground. Simply titled Operations Plan for Antarctica, this document reveals secret plans by the US to beef up permanent bases to provide, quote, access by the US with friendly powers to the natural resources of the Antarctic. Now, US permanent bases were there to, lest US rights in Antarctica be diminished by the year-round presence of other nations. These bases are considered essential in terms of the US national interest. The US government then tasked the CIA with conducting extensive, highly detailed military geography studies of Antarctica. The 133-page CIA study reveals detailed information on oceanography, tides, water levels, coastal geography, even human survival in Antarctic waters. It was for the military. In 1959, a groundbreaking treaty formalised the demilitarisation of Antarctica and split the continent into different zones.
Realising that Antarctica and its South Pole was a treasure house of scientific knowledge, 12 major nations established permanent bases down there to probe its secrets. And several years later, those 12 nations signed a remarkable document, the Antarctic Treaty. Conflict over national claims was hampering scientific research, so all claims were set aside until the end of the century.
Antarctica is currently governed by the Antarctic Treaty System, but underpinning that Antarctic Treaty System is an agreement to disagree regarding sovereignty of the continent.
But global troubles never truly left this frozen continent. In the early 1970s, experts were already warning over conflict in Antarctica. Cold War tensions were casting a chill. If countries didn't stick to the rules,
it'll be a free-for-all jungle in which the big boys with the biggest resources and the most capital will just get down there and go for their lives, regardless.
A relatively minor incident, like ships from two rival navies ramming into each other by accident, could spark an all-out war. At the time, that was between the USSR and the US. While that war never happened, the problem endures. Now it's China and the US facing off, and with good reason. In 2018, a team of experts at the University of Cambridge investigated Antarctic sea lanes. What they found was staggering. Hundreds of ships zigzagging through Antarctic waters, making the southern continent critical to projecting power.
The Antarctic Treaty covers the area to 60 degrees south, so that's the waters around Antarctica as well as the continent itself.
Now, China is keenly aware of Antarctica's importance. It's been investing heavily and rushing to play catch-up. Since the 1980s, China's gone from zero real presence to a major Antarctic player. In 2009, a book-length study by the Polar Research Institute of China described the Antarctic as a global treasure house of resources. That same institute estimated that there are 500 billion tonnes of oil and between 3 to 500 billion tonnes of natural gas on the Antarctic continent, and a further 1.35 billion tonnes in the Southern Ocean.
China has been quite transparent that it doesn't want increased restrictions on its activities, particularly its resource-related activities in the Antarctic region. That's evident, for example, in its not being keen on the development of new marine protected areas, and just in its general rhetoric and posture within the Antarctic Treaty system.
Now, it's not just scientists China's been sending there either. We spoke to a senior intelligence source from Australia's Signals Directorate. They said China's Antarctic bases can serve as powerful platforms for satellites and radar systems. And this has the intelligence community concerned. Intelligence agencies know that China's military have participated in China's Antarctic program without the presence being noted in their annual reporting under the Antarctic Treaty. This is contrary to the Antarctic Treaty, and it's happened again and again. In 2008, 6 PLA personnel were sent to Zhongshan Station to build a high-frequency radar system. Why should we care? It's just radar, right? Well, these radar stations have the ability to block satellites that pass over polar areas, and that's a military-grade feature. In 2013, China's Antarctic expedition included a PLA satellite expert to install super powerful GPS systems. That's Google Maps on steroids, and it's a flagrant disregard of the Antarctic Treaty. China's shown it's happy to not always play by the rules.
But China is far from the only country interested in Antarctic resources, so it would be unhelpful to think that it was only China interested in accessing Antarctic resources.
Its own policy documents focus on Antarctica as a resource-rich land. So while China might say it wants to promote peace in Antarctica, its willingness to flout the rules could make Antarctica's next chapter very dangerous indeed. So who owns Antarctica?
Australians often get their answer to the question from sources other than Australian sources, who may have a vested interest in saying no one owns an Antarctica. But from an Australian point of view, Australia owns 42% of the continent. We may be agreeing to manage that collectively along with all the other treaty players, and we want to be a good partner within the Antarctic Treaty system. But Australia has not renounced that claim.
But treaties have been rewritten before, and the country that commits the most resources and has the most muscle could dictate what the next treaty looks like.